Hello, and welcome to the About Healing podcast, a show created for those on or awakening into their spiritual journeys, and who are ready, wanting, and learning how to heal themselves. I am your host, About Healing medium and certified spiritual healer, Sheree Buckman. It is my purpose to guide others to the path of self-healing and to inspire those on their spiritual journeys in finding their truths. Join me as I share my experience and unfiltered perspective in healing, as well as the incredible wisdom of the loving energy that guides us. Let's begin. Well, hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to another episode of About Healing podcast. This is actually going to be a very exciting episode, as today we have a guest, and I'm going to introduce him in just a quick second. But of course, I need to say my hello to Ms. Copper.
Good morning.
I mean, you didn't think you were going to get away from not saying hi or being introduced while we have somebody else on the show, did you?
I'm always hoping, but you know.
Nah, I think your voice is needed as we get going. It at least helps me get focused, is the point. Well, that was quick. Copper doesn't have a lot to say today, and that's okay, because I have a guest today that does, and I am very excited to hear what he has to say, because today we are talking about crystals. And of course, this is kind of where I get geeked out into. But our guest, his name is Kyle Russell. He is the owner of Crystal Concentrics. Did I say that correctly?
Concentrics, yeah, pretty much. It's a tough one.
Okay, I got close. He is an author, he is a podcaster, YouTuber with 30 years experience in crystals. He travels the country sharing his knowledge and his collection, while also leading a plethora of workshops and classes and meditations on crystal energy. Fantastic and fabulous. So welcome, Kyle. Thank you for joining us.
So glad to be here. Thanks for staying in touch and making this opportunity come together.
Honestly, I think the honor is mine. If we can sit here and talk crystals, and I am not an expert by any means, but I love them and I know they bring joy, and to have someone really talk about them on a different level, I think would be amazing, especially for all the listeners. So.
Well, I was born ready to talk about this topic, so let's have at it.
I really, honestly, before we really jump into your story and we get into all the crystals, can you tell me, what is Crystal Concentrics? See, again, I'm not saying it right.
I can tell you, it's a tough one, and it takes so long to spell, and amazingly, after all these years, Google and Siri have not yet figured out how to spell it or what it is. That being said, meanwhile, on TikTok, I've got something like 6 million, or no, I think it's over 10 million hashtag Crystal Concentrics. So fortunately, Crystal Concentrics TikTok knows how to spell it. Let me explain what the concept is. So the idea is kind of like how when you throw a pebble in a pond and it makes concentric ripples that go outward. So the concept here is that the crystal is the center of where those ripples are coming from. And we and the other crystals act as other stones in the pond so that there's an interaction of those ripples. They cross each other, but the concept is that we are crystal concentric. That is to say, we are based around the crystal or in relationship to the crystal. That's the whole concept behind Crystal Concentrics.
That's fascinating and beautiful. And I love it that you almost just created this term and philosophy, and how it's taken off and people are hashtagging it everywhere. So social media is huge. Wow. Look at your creations.
Yeah, it's kind of great because I needed something that was original. I needed something that started with crystal, and then Concentrics came to me, and here we are.
Divinely led. Oh, my favorite. And I love it. Well, Kyle, I wondered because you and I have had conversations, but the one thing that I loved was hearing your story about how you got into crystals. Would you mind sharing that?
Surely. I will mention that there's a nice written version called My Moldavite Breakthrough on my website, crystalconcentrics.com, and it also appears in my book, Crystal Energy. But I will give you a recounting of it right now, not in the fullest of detail, but the bottom line is that I was visiting the store of Robert Simmons, who is now a primary name in the business, has written many books, including two about Moldavite specifically. The most recent one features my story. And I went to visit his store in 1987, which was a long time ago, up in the North Shore above Boston and Gloucester, and he told me how special Moldavite was, and he ended up giving me a piece that was probably worth 60 or $80. And as soon as I left the store, I started to feel this crazy vortex sort of coming in on me from on high and going straight to my pocket where the stone was. And I had to take the stone out because it was such an intense physical experience, not pleasant. And that night I had a crazy dream in which I encountered a nondescript woman who spoke to me through a glass window of the store I was working in. This is in the dream again, and she opened her mouth and she spoke in a language I had never heard before. And I have since learned that that sound that I heard her speak in is called toning. It's a harmonic way of singing. The Tibetan monks have a way of doing it that's kind of cool. In any case, she spoke to me and I responded to her and I woke up. It was such an intense dream. I sat bolt upright and looked right up at the mantelpiece where the Moldavite was physically. And what she said and what I said are not even so relevant right now. You got to go follow and check out that blog to learn exactly what she said and what I said. But the bottom line was, I was so freaked out by Moldavite specifically that I never touched it for 20 years. And within a week or two, I suddenly knew all kinds of information. I had become what I call geosentient. So geosentience is the capacity to pick up a stone and sort of understand what it's saying, what the message is of that stone. And so I became geosentient and I immediately started working with people. I also at that point had additional abilities that I no longer have to tap into people's past lives. And that was kind of fun and exciting. I say it in quotes because, in my experience, most of the salient past life experiences are generated at the point of death. And so, if someone has a dramatic death, that's what you remember most saliently. So, I knew this information. I started buying and selling crystals. And then, fast forward a number of years. I was into it, but I did lots of other things professionally, and I came back to it and I started wanting to teach about it. So I don't know if I'm jumping ahead of myself, but I wanted to make sure to answer your question. I hope that does it.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And I love how you were talking about, and I didn't even write it down, I meant to, but crystal, you were talking about sensitivity. What was the term you used?
Geosentience. So people have clairaudio, they have clairvoyance, and for me, geosentience is that awareness of the stones and how they communicate to us.
I find that utterly fascinating and I adore that term because I know from our previous conversations and how you talk about certain stones, while the general meaning might be different for you than it is to, I mean, the common description. Let's put it that way. Because I think we had a conversation about obsidian in our last
We
conversation.
certainly did. Yeah, I want to drill into what you said about the common understanding. So, the common understanding essentially is the amalgam of information that exists in books that are out there and in the online resources, which are mightily built up by and contributed to by online crystal sellers. So, in order to sell the crystals, they upload or collect and share information about those crystals. So if you go online and you look, what is the meaning of such and such a stone? A good portion of the answers are going to come from commercial sites who are there to sell you crystals. And one of the issues that I have with this common understanding of crystals is that it's all over the place. They'll tell you that one stone can be great for ascension, but also for grounding. And I have trouble understanding or believing or accepting that one stone could be all of those things. I tend to come from a perspective that believes that each of the stones has a very specific function, and you should honor and utilize it for that function and not splice onto it all these other things merely as a marketing ploy.
Yeah, here, and I love that because it's same thing when I look them up, and we have spoke about this, but because when I am sharing information, and even for myself with crystals, it is when I look it up, there's a feeling that goes with it, and they have to match with the description. Because many times I'll look it up and it doesn't make sense because I'm holding the crystal and they're telling me it's grounding, but I'm like, this is not grounding. If anything, it's heightening and it's making me feel lighter. I'm like, that's not what that does. So I love that. It's trusting those instincts and really going in and blending it.
Totally. Is synthesizing it, integrating it.
And finding the meaning for yourself. I love it. So I wondered, because this is also a healing podcast, and I love crystals for the whole sense of, when I am feeling maybe more into myself and needing to get out of my shell or to raise my vibration, I'll grab certain stones. But not only that, is that a lot of people have used them for physical healing when they're going through things. And I wondered if you wouldn't mind talking about the connection between crystals and healing.
I am more than happy to do that. In fact, one of the ways, and I think it might be on your agenda, so we can talk about that later, specifically with meditation. But I just made a couple of video drafts because I've got over 200 drafts in my phone of great videos all about crystals, and I've put out probably 1,500 videos so far all about crystals. But I'm going to actually show you with a little show and tell here two crystals that I believe are particularly helpful for healing. Now, this is a topaz. It is a nice water-worn Nigerian topaz, and it breaks off at the bottom in this shiny way. It's a clear cleave. It's not like a glass type cleave, which quartz would and obsidian would do. And for me, topaz, the reason why it's so important, and I call it the body whisperer, is that it's very heavy and dense, and it is connecting sort of to the watery channels of our nervous system. And I believe that it is an essential prerequisite for really grappling with your own health and whatever ups and downs you might be going through, to be able to tap into your body. And using topaz as a tool for that is particularly effective because for me, the topaz resonates with the nervous system. It allows you to go in. I especially like when you close your eyes, it closes out the external world and the distractions. And the topaz helps you to tap into making contact with your furthest extremities, going in a sort of body survey to identify what's happening where. And there are many parts of your body that never get heard or listened to. It's like they're silent children in the corner who never have their opinion asked for. And so the topaz invites us and beckons us to say, hey, I'm here for you, you're here for me, let's be in dialogue. And so I think that's a really important part of the healing process, because if you're not in dialogue with the different parts, you can't be sensitive to ways in which you're getting worse or ways in which you're getting better. And it's harder to communicate healing information to those extremities if you don't have a language or a roadmap or a way of reaching those furthest reaches of the body. So that's topaz. I'm going to add now this magnificent milky calcite wand. I bought this. I was excited about it. I knew immediately that it was going to have to come into my personal collection, that it was not going to be something I was going to try to sell, because by holding it, I automatically felt both the natural healing, nurturing quality of both milky calcite and milky quartz. And I also felt a sense of directionality because of this point. And so, for those who are experiencing pain and suffering, I mean, I suppose you could use it emotionally, but there are lots of other stones that are good for more emotional issues. But the calcite tends to help us get next to the tissue, the actual troubled tissue, whether it's inflamed, whether it's wounded, whether it's cut, whatever it is, and create a kind of a bridge between the sensation and the experience of the troubled area and the mind, the spirit, and the soul. So that again, you're given the opportunity to get into relationship with the problem area. And the calcite particularly helps us just just witness. So if the topaz is all about creating a line of mutual communication, the calcite is about getting next to and being in relationship with that troubled area, whatever that may bring. So does that kind of answer? That's two examples of crystals intimately connected with the healing process.
Yes, I don't think I could have asked for a better description, and I loved it. I even took notes while you were doing that. I'm like, ooh, I need topaz. Ooh, I.
They're great. Now, the thing about topaz is often colored. The bright blue topaz that you see in rings has always been treated in order to produce a uniform color. That's why I tend to like this sort of watery, clearish topaz. That's my favorite. It does exist in tumbled form. I tend to like crystals because the more you get into this, for me at least, bigger is not necessarily better, but sometimes you get to a certain threshold size and crystallization for a stone that is like sort of the minimum necessary to maximize what it has to bring to you.
Right. And I personally, too, I am a huge fan of raw crystals. I want them in their truest form. That's just me personally. Everybody has their, prefer tumbled because they like it smooth, or shiny. I'm like, I like them raw, what they were in the ground.
I totally relate to that, and I know there are many people who feel that way. Luckily for me, I'm an equal opportunity employer. I believe that a finished crystal is great when it comes to certain types of stones. But there are certain other types of stones, indeed, many types of stones. A great example is rose quartz. Rose quartz is actually quite rough and I find inaccessible in its rough form. And so I think a rough rose quartz is great to have like under your bed or in a corner or on your desk. But if you really want to sort of sink in, dive into the rose quartz energy, there's nothing like a polished rose quartz to give you that opportunity.
Agreed. Well, I say that even though I prefer the raw stones, but if I'm carrying them in my pocket, they're tumbled ones because otherwise it gets pokey and it's very uncomfortable.
It gets pokey and you can break them. Like this calcite would never survive being in my pocket for a day.
I have learned that the hard way with some very beautiful stones and
Mm-hmm.
or forgot them and they got washed and they should not have been
Mm-hmm.
wet.
That actually
But we live
happened to
and learn.
me. I went to take out my wash from the laundry, and an amazing, beautiful, huge Moldavite pendant was right there in the little catch area. But it had made
Oh,
it, and it wasn't worse for the wear.
well, that's good. Oh my goodness. I love it. I love it all. So, Kyle, one thing that I find probably really fascinating and interesting is you spoke of that you created this 10 energy system. I was really hoping that you can break that down and share with us what that is.
Absolutely, easily and happily. So my 10 energy zone system was developed because I started teaching. And as soon as I started teaching, which was some, gosh, 15 or 20 years after I first got exposed to the crystals, I realized I needed to systematize my knowledge so that I could explain it to other people. Otherwise, it would be the free associative experience that you have online. And so I started to group the stones and say, okay, well, this makes sense for this type of function, and this makes sense for that type of function. And then I realized, oh, the chakra system gives us a template for at least 7 primary chakras that many people are familiar with. Now, in my 10 energy zone system, we expand that 7 to 10. And I'll give you a quick rundown. Do I have time for that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so number one, the root chakra people talk about. For me, I go below that and I go to something called foundation. So, foundation is beneath the root, and it has to do with our relationship to the past, ancestors, everything that came before, fossils, the history of the earth, all that type of stuff is connected to the concept of foundation. Root remains root. Then the sacral in the chakra system, I failed to understand the relevant difference between sacral and root. And so I replaced that with the concept of the belly energy zone. So the belly energy zone, even though it's centered around, say, the belly button, is all about your internal organs and functions. And that can be top to bottom. It's not necessarily physically limited. Then we move on to what in the chakra system is called the solar plexus. And you'll notice that the chakra system likes to identify locations, whereas in my system, I like to identify concepts, which are much larger than the locations. So instead of solar plexus chakra, I call it the self energy zone. And the self energy zone has a host of stones associated with different aspects of our experience of self. We move on to heart. Heart is the same, heart chakra. Then I came up with a brand new one between the heart and the throat called the healing energy zone. And that's right here in the chest, lungs. That's what that's all about. And there were just so many stones whose function was really just realigning, restabilizing, reorganizing, and renewing energy, that I group those in the healing energy zone. Moving on, we have the throat chakra. Again, I transcend that by calling it the voice energy zone. And the voice energy zone has to do with how we express ourselves to the world, how we talk to ourselves internally, how we manifest and create things in the world. In fact, my favorite sugilite here is a voice energy zone stone having to do specifically with manifestation. We move on from the throat chakra to the what is called the third eye, and for me, I call that vision. Vision, the vision energy zone is all about your capacity to create, imagine, dream. It connects to the subconscious. So that's important. And then instead of crown chakra, we have what I call source. And source is the interface between our physical, personal experience and our relationship to the divine. So source has to do with our connection to God and the spirits and your spirit guides, etc. And then number 10 is called channel, and that's not necessarily on the body, but channel has to do with the facilitation or modulation, filtering of energies. The flow of energy is dictated by channel. And those are my 10 energy zones.
Fascinating. So, question about all those energy zones. Now, do you have it somewhere where you have them categorized and have crystals under each of these categories?
Absolutely, I do. In fact, the way that I set it up in my book is my book has 2 narratives. It's got the text narrative, and then it's got the photographic narrative. So the photographs on any given page may not have to do with what's being talked about on that page. And the reason for that is that we had these 200 odd photos that we wanted to share, and we wanted to space them beautifully throughout the book. Now, the logic behind which they are spaced is that they are listed in terms of their energy zone. So at the beginning of the book, you will find foundation stones, then you'll move on to root stones, then to belly stones, and all the way up to channel. And that has been a really great way to share with people a way of understanding how they all relate to each other. And then at the end of the book, I group the crystals into two forms. One is quartz and one is non-quartz. And all the stones are listed alphabetically, and every single one of them has written next to it what energy zone it's associated with. So there's numerous ways that you can cross and interpolate the relationship of the stones with their energy zones.
So, can you please share what is the name of your book and where could people find it if they are interested, like me all of a sudden, who now I just need to know what all the zones are for each of the crystals?
I know, it's great. And the only diagram I have in the book is a body diagram of the 10 energy zone system. It's an awesome, awesome graphic. It sort of says it all. You can find my book, which is Crystal Energy: Understanding and Working with Stones for Clarity and Flow. That book you can buy from me directly off my site. I recommend that because I'll make sure it gets to you packaged nicely, and I have a stack of them, and I get a little bit more from the sale if you do buy from me directly. But if you go to my website, crystalconcentrics.com, there's a banner about the book right on the home page. If you click on that, you have the option to get the hard copy from me or to click through to Amazon. And Amazon has the book not only in hard copy, which I think they charge a tad more than I charge for the hard copy, but they also have a PDF version, which I'm selling for a ridiculously low amount. A lot of people like to hold a book, and I think it's really better for referring to. But if you are on a budget and you still want to check it out, it's like 10 or 11 bucks or something ridiculous like that. And you can get that PDF right through Amazon.
That's amazing. And so, for everybody who may be interested, just know that I will have the link to his website on the show notes. So you can just click it directly and do your research and find it that way. So I will have that there.
Super cool.
That's amazing. And so there's one other thing, because one other thing that I learned from you and that I actually did, but unfortunately didn't make it to the live one, is that the meditation with crystals. So
Yes.
Before we get into the service you provide, can you talk about the importance or what it is like to meditate with crystals?
Absolutely. For me, after all these years, aside from doing an in-person session with somebody, which doesn't happen every day, I find that the best way to connect with the energy of the crystals is through meditation. What meditation is essentially is the setting aside of sacred time and space for yourself without the distraction of other people or your daily concerns and to-do lists. And in this magical place called meditation, I tend to lead people. So I don't meditate as much or so much for myself, but with other people. And when I meditate with other people and I lead a meditation, a guided meditation, I'm basically channeling the information through me so it benefits me also, but it explains to people each of the different stones and what their function is. So, for example, I might do a meditation about ascension and use ascension stones. But I always begin my meditations with a body meditation because I think it's really, really important to remain grounded in your physical person so that you don't get disembodied and discombobulated by your meditative or spiritual practice. Some people are all about, height, height, height. I just want the height. But sometimes that's an avoidant technology, I say. It's an avoidant strategy to get away from your physical body and the importance and primacy of that. And again, because you're a healing podcast, it's super, super important for the healing process to remain in touch with your body at all times, but have the expertise and get the experience of levitating, of traveling, of journeying, and uh, looking at these concepts such as the body whisperer, connecting to your body. I have other stones, for example. moldavite, which is the other big pendant that I'm wearing today, totally coincidentally. Um, because I realized yesterday I put on this moldavite ring here. This is the moldavite, that's a Colombianite. And I realized I've been really sort of in the sugilite kind of orbit lately, and I wanted to bring in the Moldavite orbit if I were forced to, and I hate to be forced to because I don't think of the crystals in an anthropomorphic way. But this morning, before we started talking, I had this hit that the Moldavite is more of a feminine energy and the Sugilite is more of a masculine energy. And so together they sort of help balance me out and show me that there's another side, that there's a duality always in place, which is beautifully demonstrated by this double terminated epido crystal. You'll notice it comes to a point here and it comes to a point there. And I was making a video earlier about wands and the conveyance of energy, and a double terminated piece sort of shuttles the energy back and forth, which can generate energy or be used as a way of helping you to experience dichotomies and opposites, day, night, yin, yang, etc. So that's a long-winded answer to your question. I hope it answers the question. If there's anything I missed, please drill down and let me know what else I could explain.
No, I think that that was fantastic. And thank you for sharing that. So I did sign up for one of his monthly meditations. Unfortunately, when I signed up, I didn't realize it was a holiday weekend. And so the family got distracted. So, but luckily, because I missed it, I got the recording afterwards and I got to sit down with it when I had that SETI time. And it was beautiful. I found it fascinating. I had never done a guided meditation led with crystals like that. I mean, I've meditated with crystals, but never to the extent that you led. So I found that amazing. So, can you talk about your monthly meditations?
Surely. Because I have a store in Arlington, Mass, that we're open 7 days a week, we also have a meditation space there. So we do an in-person meditation, and the in-person meditations are enhanced by the fact that I have a full 10-set crystal bowl experience. I've got brass bowls, I've got a frame drum, I have got all rattles and shakers, all kinds of cool stuff that we use um, in the in-person meditation. However, and I do have some local people who will attend the in-person meditation and then later in the month attend the online meditation, because the online meditation gives you a different experience. And I'll talk a little bit about the online one. As with the in-person, we focus on the body first, we ground into that, and then we bring in a host of crystals that are relevant and inspiring in the moment. So, for example, the most recent meditation, I talked about space, space and crystals, space being location in the universe. And of course, I brought in topaz for internal space. I then talked about and used tektite. This is a black tektite. Moldavite is a tektite, but it's a different ball game. Moldavite, well, I won't get into that right now, but tektite is about connecting with your aura, which is the energy sheath that surrounds your body and sometimes can be very tight to your skin or sometimes can emanate outwards 1, 2, 3, 10, 20 feet, whatever it is. So that was peripheral space, I called it. And then I brought in, I'm just going to bring in one more. Where are you hiding? There it is. I brought in a pseudotektite. This is called Colombianite, which is what my ring is made of here. And Colombianite is about tethering space. So how do I attach myself to an anchor, even if I'm located in the middle of nowhere in space? And so that was that concept of tethering space, peripheral space, internal space. Those are the types of themes that we cover unless we're doing what I call a healing meditation. And in a healing meditation, the people who are present share some concerns they have, some hopes, some things that they want help with. I could use a little more of this in my life. And then I pick specific stones based on their stated issue. And then we use the meditation as a way of exploring this stone for this person, that stone for that person. And everybody sort of gets to mooch off the learning and the healing experience that the other people are having. And then we're all able to apply, oh, that could be relevant to me, or that was really relevant to me 3 years ago, but I'm remembering and re-healing in that process. So there's lots of different ways we can go with it, and it's always a good time.
Right. And if I remember correctly, it was not expensive. You offer these at a great rate, and you do memberships also. Is that correct?
Yeah, I have this way that you can. I think the online meditations are 18 now, and if you buy 3 of them, they go down to 16. And the similar thing is available for my in-person one. And it's really handy because if you are busy or something comes up unexpectedly, you will get the replay. The only thing that the replay lacks, and this is the incentive that people have to catch it live, is that the attendees who are not included in the actual recording, I spotlight myself for privacy reasons. Nobody else is going to be on the internet as a result of this. But at the end of the video or the meditation, when I turn off the recording, we come together as a group and everybody shares what their experience. And that's like a whole other level of enrichment because it proves how different everybody's experience is and how valid, valuable, and contributing it can be to your experience to be in the presence of other like-minded folks who are willing to go on this type of journey together.
Absolutely. Community is everything, and getting validation and people who understand it is invaluable. And I think that is amazing. So for all of you out there who are curious and want to know more about Kyle or what he has to offer, visit his website, crystalconcentrics.com. Again, I will have the link and the spelling in there so it'll be easy to get to because it is not an easy word, as you can tell.
You got better just in this session.
I did. I'm really proud of myself. See, learning and growing in every direction.
Exactly.
Kyle. Oh, and for everybody out there who is listening to the podcast, I want you to know that there is actually, you can catch this entire episode on YouTube and see it live because Kyle here, his one request as we got started was to push my comfort zone and say, but I want it on video because I'm going to put it on my YouTube channel. Okay. I hear you, Kyle. And I hear the universe. It is more growth, and I'm trying it myself. So you can find this episode on Kyle's channel. And Kyle, can you tell people how to find your channel?
As with TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube is at Crystal Concentrics, at Crystal Concentrics. Simple as that. And the website, of course, crystalconcentrics.com.
I love your consistency. That is amazing. You just need to know how to spell concentrics. So again, I will put that in there for you, but I will probably also copy it onto my own brand new, very little YouTube channel myself, just so people, you have the opportunity to find it. And I just have to say thank you, Kyle, for everything and for this experience and coming on and sharing your knowledge, your wisdom, and just is this inspiring information about crystals and healing in general. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for bringing various different voices of healing to the public. And I know that your YouTube channel will be well received. And I really appreciate having the opportunity. We can talk anytime. If there are any things you forgot or your customers get back to you, viewers, and say, hey, we want to learn more about such and such, I'd be happy to come back.
You know what? Don't tease that because it may happen and it may have you on constantly. Maybe we can do a fun segment about crystals. But for
surely,
now, again,
maybe we can dedicate a portion of your podcast to an actual crystal meditation.
Ooh.
How's that?
You know, I do offer meditations with my podcast too.
Well,
so
there
let's
you
just
go.
Dangle that there. Well, we'll see what happens, everybody, and the new ideas spinning and evolving and coming to life. But, for this episode, this was wonderful. I hope you all enjoyed it and learned something new today. And as always, beautiful people, be kind to yourself. And I'll see you next week. With so much love and gratitude, I want to thank you for listening to this week's episode. My hope today is that the message continues to guide you along your path to healing. To learn more about me and my purposeful work, visit my website at abouthealingmedium.com. You can also follow About Healing Medium on Facebook and Instagram, where you can find the episode's healing guidance, quotes, tips, insights, and chances to win free stuff. To ask a question or to share comments, email me at abouthealingpodcast@gmail.com, or feel free to reach me on Facebook and Instagram at About Healing Medium. Until next time, be kind to yourself.